Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
So I had been thinking about something that I've experienced myself that I've kind of beat myself up about a little bit, a lot. Okay, maybe medium. I don't know, but I've definitely beat myself up about it.
Mhm.
And it's this idea that when we do follow our intuition, which
Mhm.
I feel like that's the way I flow through life most days, that following our intuition does not necessarily mean that our life is going to be without conflict, that our life is going to be like perfect. Because what I found in my own experience recently, what has come to my awareness is like, I have been following my intuition. We just talked about the last few months of my life.
Mhm.
I have been following my angel messages, which is part for me of my spiritual path. My
Mhm.
angel messages, my own intuition, listening to myself, my whatever comes to me in meditation, my
Mhm.
clairvoyant messages. I have been following every single one of those.
Mhm.
And the outcome was not what I thought the outcome was going to be,
Mhm.
right? So I thought it was important to talk about the fact that following our intuition and following our spiritual path does not equate to not experiencing challenges, because there are things we came here to experience.
Mhm.
There are things that we need to learn, people we need to encounter to teach us
Mhm.
lessons that need to happen, because that's what part of what we came here to do. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. What has been your own experience with that?
So that's really interesting that you brought that up because my solo podcast episode that I just released today was essentially it was all about this Chinese parable that kept coming up for me. But my biggest takeaway from it was kind of several things. But one of them was that life will inevitably have ups and downs. That is part of human life. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the things that feel like bad things in the moment are actually bad things for your life. Or even the things that feel like good things in the moment are actually the right things and the right path for you. The things that feel like bad things or challenges in the moment, if you're following your intuition, you're still going to have those because those things are going to come up in life. But like you just said, ultimately, we're meant to learn these lessons. And so at the end of the day, it turns out that was actually a good thing that came up because I needed to learn that lesson in order to continue my journey forward. And so, yeah, even if you're following your intuition, even if you're on the right path, you're on the right track in life, there are still going to be challenges because there's supposed to be challenges. And that will always happen. There are lessons that we're meant to learn. There are things that we're meant to go through that will help us grow and get to that next step or that next level or whatever it is on our path.
One of the frustrating things that happened for me that brought this topic about was beating myself up over this situation
Mhm.
over and over again. Like, how could I have not seen that? How could I have missed that? I even went as far in being like, how gifted am I really when I couldn't have seen? I was even doubting my gifts. I was like, how gifted? Like, how protected am I? How much do the angels really love me? Like, that's bullshit because of how the situation ended up. But it's
Mhm.
true. It is part of, for me, of my angels showing me love. It is part of them protecting me. It is part of them protecting my spiritual path, because as a spiritual being having a human experience, I really believe we're here to learn things. We're here to experience things. And if they just shielded me from everything, they put me in this bubble that I sometimes used to think when I first started getting my spiritual gifts, I was like, I'm good. I got a golden ticket to life. I got a free pass. Here we go. I'm gonna be good and no suffering, no pain, only the best of everything. I even started to doubt those things, but I realized very quickly that it's like we talked about it. Without those experiences that I was very guided to and that I within myself felt like were the right things, the right steps, the right words, the right actions, the right people felt were right, I would not have gotten to this place today of the realization of how much stronger I am, of
Mhm.
the potential that I have in my life, of all of the beautiful doors that have and are opening for me because of that experience that I had that I did not love and enjoy as I followed my intuitive hits and as I followed my angel messages. I was listening actually to, I think his name is Gavin on YouTube, and he's a Christian prophet. I love him. He's
Mhm.
great. I listen to him often. And
Mhm.
he was talking about something to the effect of just because you're going through difficulties, it doesn't mean that God isn't prophesizing over your life. So just basically the same thing in like a Christian context, right?
Mhm.
And it's really what kind of opened my eyes to it that, hey, you are supposed to be going through this. This is part of your path. Without the growth, without that situation, without all of that God walked you through, for those of us who use
Mhm.
that term for a higher power, you wouldn't have gotten to the place that you are today, where you are strong enough to now handle the next path. Because I
Mhm.
seem to always think, and I think this has a lot to do with my Catholic background, that if I do the right things, like the right
Mhm.
thing, if I do the right things, then I'm protected by God, and that protection equals no suffering. But that's not true. And I fully believe that as humans, that how much we suffer is unnecessary, because I think a lot of it has to do with our mental work. But the difficulties that we experience, I think that those are necessary. But I think that that Catholic upbringing in me kind of kept telling me that, are you really like a spiritual being? Like, are you really that gifted? Are you really that loved?
Mhm.
Because they just let you go through months of all that brought you to this place of riveting pain and of realizations that you treated yourself and allowed yourself less than the best, essentially.
So it's interesting because you brought up the suffering, and I think that we hear that, suffering is part of the human experience, and to be human is to suffer. And I think that what that is part of being a human is having a human brain, that ego, right? And that is the aspect that creates the suffering for us. So our human brains are wired to try to keep us safe. And so when something comes up that feels like that was scary, that was not good, that was painful, didn't feel safe, then the human brain is wired to basically say, yeah, you know what? You're right. That was really unsafe. And you need to go back to safety, go back to your bubble, go back to what you know, go back to sort of falling into basically a lot of the behavior patterns that keep us feeling comfortable that, we talk about all the time, like growth and change requires this level of discomfort because it is you're constantly working against that ego or that human brain that you have to kind of like move outside of your comfort zone because your brain reads that as danger, moving outside of safety, right? And so that it all comes together to say that to be human is to suffer because as a human, you have a human brain and you have that ego aspect that even though you are a spiritual being here having a human experience, like so you're having the human experience of it, and we can't get rid of it. That is just part of it. But it is that part that creates the suffering. So yeah, you're following your intuition, you're going through and you're learning these lessons and you are moving forward on the path as you're meant to. But your human brain is going to keep telling you that, oh, well, that sucked. Like, that was terrible. Let's never do that again because I don't like it. And it was too much for me. It was too painful. Stop trying to follow your intuition and go on this path that's so dangerous, like clearly not good for you. And so it's the drama comes in there, like
Yes.
creates this suffering. And that's exactly what it is to me when I think about it. It's like, yeah, it makes so much sense when you can think about it from this aspect of it because, yeah, following your intuition and staying on the path that you're truly meant to be on and staying in alignment, your brain's still going to create suffering for you no matter what.
Yeah. And something that came up as you were saying that is how that happens in love, which I think has brought the world and especially our society to the state that it's currently in. When someone we love and someone we give to, especially like in familial and like romantic relationships, I think are the two, at least, around me that I see the most, that when people get hurt in those two types of relationships, then they're like, I swear off all family. Like if it's like their parents who hurt them, then they're like, all my cousins, aunts, grandparents, like I'm just done. I'm just gonna cut them all off.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the same thing in romantic relationships when people are like, well, I'm never going to get married again because that happened to me. And you close yourself off because your brain is telling you that's scary. Like last time you allowed yourself to fall in love and marry someone, look at how that turned out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true in general, like what we are seeing today as a society and our inability to open our hearts and like love each other as a collective because we're all in this fear. Our human brains are telling us, like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be vulnerable. Don't open yourself up again. Don't allow that family member to come back into your life. And I feel like if we can get past our human brains, if we can do our mental work, if we can work through our traumas, our emotions, and open ourselves up to the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience and that we're here to make the most of that human experience, which means not living in fear and not allowing that ego in our human brain to kind of be the block between that spiritual being that we are, because that's what we're doing is essentially blocking the experience that our spirit came here to have
Mm-hmm.
by not allowing ourselves to open up again, to love again, to be cared for again, to care for someone else. I think that's an essential part of what we all need to do to be able to change the world, to be able to get to the next place. And I know changing the world sounds so big, but the little things that will change the world essentially.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that that is ultimately the trajectory that we're on in this sort of larger mission that we kind of have to have in the background, at least for all of us, is we want to do our part to try and make the world a better place, a more loving, kind place for everyone who gets to live here. And that is just part of the journey that we're on. And that's part of our role here in feeling guided and feeling like we're here to help people and here to be on this journey of healing.
Yeah.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next